Hello and welcome to the Author Webinar Series, brought to you by the Nonfiction Authors Association and Writers Conference. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you are seeking guidance for your own author journey and want to reach your goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. We look forward to connecting with you and hope you enjoy this webinar.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the free webinar series from the Nonfiction Authors Association. I love our guest today. Joanne McCall is a professional publicist and rock star in her own right. She has been working with us for a number of years, teaching our book publicity and media training courses. She's phenomenal, and I know you're going to enjoy her webinar today on the media mistakes you should avoid. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and hand the floor over to Joanne. And just remind you all, we are going to do live Q&A at the end. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box and I will help facilitate those questions. In the meantime, I'll be in the background chatting with y'all and appreciate y'all being here. Joanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. And I'll go get your cup of coffee, okay? Because then
Thank you.
things will be much better once you get back here.
Yes.
I have mine as well. Anyway, hi, everybody. I'm so delighted to be here. I love working with the Nonfiction Authors Association and all the people associated with it. I take a stand that if you're an author and a writer, want to be published, write books, you need a community that will help you. And this is a great community for exactly that. So what I'm going to do now is I'll bring up some of the slides that I've prepared for our little chat today. So give me 1 second and we'll share this. And we'll get this thing rolling. I'm so delighted. So many people are here from really all over the world. And I'm thrilled that you're joining us today. So again, Nonfiction Authors Association and McCall Media Group. So we're going to be talking about the 5 media mistakes authors make and what to do instead. So I've been looking forward to this presentation. And the reason I think I'm a good one to present this is I've been a publicist and a media trainer, as Stephanie mentioned, for over 2 decades. I've been doing it a long time. And before that, I was in radio broadcasting. So I had my own radio show. And I was able to interview really anybody I wanted to, whether it was city officials or leaders of nonprofit associations. But I tended to gravitate toward authors. There'd be local authors. And then at that time, book tours were a very common thing. And so we'd have wonderful authors coming through town that would stop by and we'd do an interview. And I absolutely loved it because I love writing, I love authors, I love books, I love publishing, everything about it. And that's always been the case. To be able to buy someone's book that they put their heart and soul, their work, their knowledge, everything into it for a price point of like $20 or whatever it is, to me, that's just the best game in town. And I've always loved it. So to move forward, start my own business, and then do webinars like this is just a natural progression. I'm one of you, and I'm delighted you're here today. Okay, so let's talk about those 5 media mistakes that authors make. There are more than 5, I have to say, and I imagine you could guess that. And the reason I picked these particular 5, there's a few reasons for it. One is that these are probably the most common mistakes that I see, even today. All along, I see these mistakes over and over and over again. And I think a lot of times people aren't even aware that they're committing them. And I think this is a good thing to address. Another reason is that each mistake has a what to do instead and some actionable steps to actually correct it. It's one thing to get advice to change something and you don't know what to do or how to change it. That's different. It's good to have actionable steps. And then I would say the third reason that I picked these particular mistakes is that they're really fundamental. These are foundational things. There's always mistakes that can be made with technology and lighting and getting the right microphone and writing the right kind of pitch that will grab media. All those things are important. And there are foundational things that were true 20 years ago. They're true today, and they'll be true 20 years from now. And that's what we're really looking at today. So without any further ado, let's get into the first one, which is leading with your book and not your message. And this is kind of a tricky one because I know when you've spent the time to write a book and you're out doing the media around it, it's about the book. You've put your heart and soul into writing that and you want to share it with the world. I get it. I feel the same way. I've written books too, and it's about the book. But the truth is, when you want to get out and start doing media, it really is about the audience and about the media gatekeeper, really, because you have to pass through them to even get to the audience. So you want to lead with your message. And it's really important to think about this because when you lead with the book and you're only talking about the book, it can put people off. And I have a good example of this. So, in addition to doing publicity for my authors and also media training, I have a side project where I help produce a podcast. And this has been about 8 years now. And this isn't just any podcast, it's a pretty popular one. We get 1.4 million downloads every 30 days. That's not 25 downloads. That's not 10,000 downloads. That's 1.4 million. It's a lot. And it's usually in the top 30 of overall searches, not just a category, but overall. So it does pretty well. The reason I explain all that is that the host of this particular show, and he's not the only one, but when he has a guest on and they are doing an interview and the guest starts saying things like, well, in my book, I go into this very thoroughly, or in chapter 2, I really address the question that you're asking about, or I wrote the book because, the book, the book, the book. And what ends up happening is after the interview, the host will come to me and say, I can't use it. And then I get that fun job of going to the publicist or going directly to the author and saying, I appreciate that you spent the time. We really love the topic. I'm afraid we can't use it. And I don't love that. And of course, they don't love hearing it. So what I try to do is inoculate that problem in the steps when we're setting up the interview by saying, look, we're gonna talk about your book in the introduction. We'll mention it. We will also talk about it in the conclusion, and we will have it on the show page. We'll give a description of it. We'll give links to it so people can buy it. We'll have links to your social media. We'll cover it. So you don't really need to talk about it during the interview. Some listen to that and some do not. And this is what happens. And he's not the only one. There are others that feel the same way. You want to lead with the message. And if I can leave you with anything today, it's that. You want to think about how you're helping the other person and not the book itself. The book will get mentioned, I promise. And the other thing to keep in mind is when you're doing these interviews, you're really there to entertain and to educate. And there's this hybrid word that is often used that I don't particularly like, but it's called edutainment, education and entertainment, kind of a hybrid. And that's really why you're there when you're doing interviews, is to educate and entertain and talk to your target audience, which is also the target audience of the media outlet that you're doing an interview with. So if the mistake is leading with the book and not the message, what do we do instead? So we lead with the message, of course. It's pretty simple. So when you're pitching, this is when you're pitching to get on a show or to talk with a journalist, whatever the outlet is that you're targeting. You want to offer a solution, the value you offer to their audience. That's really what you want to focus in on. You can develop 3 to 5 key talking points, and you should. This should be in your pitch. These are also the things you would address during an interview, and they would be helpful to the audience again. Create stories that illustrate your message. So for each key message you have, having a story to really illustrate it is really good to have. This is because we're hardwired to tell stories. Way back in early days of human beings, we sat around a campfire and told stories, at least I assume. But we did tell stories. It was oral transmission of information from generation to generation. So we are hardwired to tell stories. Include them when you're doing your interviews. Part of this will be determined whether you're doing, say, a 4-minute on-camera interview or a 60-minute podcast. Obviously, you've got more key messages in one, and you have the opportunity to tell more stories in the other. But keep that in mind. The stories are incredibly powerful. They bypass that critical part of the brain that judges everything. We step into stories. That's why they're so powerful. And then connect your content to current events or trends. This makes you timely in many different media outlets. Now, this is not so much the case when you're you're going after very niche topics. If it's a very niche, they may not be so determined by the date on the calendar or the season, etc. If you wrote a book on How to raise turtles. I'm just pulling that out of thin air. I don't know. How to raise turtles. There's probably some podcasts or other media that focuses in on that. And it really wouldn't matter so much the time of year, except maybe when they're born. I suppose there could be a match there. But the point is, with many different interviews, having a reason to be there at that particular point in time is important to say what that is. So, for example, I mean, you could be listening to this webinar at any point in time, but as we're doing this live, it's back to school time very soon, couple of weeks, people back to school and people back to work. They're coming off of summer vacations and everybody's getting kind of serious. We're moving into fall. We got to get back to it. And so if you have a book on how to, how to anything, maybe it's parenting and you have steps on helping kids to adjust to a new school year. Here's tips on how they can have a successful school year and a successful start to the year or whatever it might be, but tying into that point of time of year. Also, we're getting into the fall, so everything's pumpkin spice latte pretty soon, right? Everything. And then, of course, we have Halloween, and then we get into Thanksgiving, and of course, the holidays. Beyond that, we've got a New Year's Day, New Year, New You, of course. And then in January, all the diet books come out because people overate over the holidays. And then all the cookbooks come out because they just do. That's the time of year when those kinds of books come out. Tying into the correct time of year is a way to lead with your message and make it timely for the show, the producer, the host. So moving on to mistake number 2 is making it all about you. It's similar to the first one, but and we've all known people like this. We've known wonderful, incredible human beings, and the moment their book comes out and publishes, they turn into a carnival barker. Tell me you haven't seen that. I know I've seen it. And sometimes, whether you're pitching a journalist or a show, and if you start saying things like, if you start with, well, I've been a psychologist for 15 years now, and I've had thousands of patients, and I've done this and that. I went to this university. I've been published in over 100 peer-reviewed journals. I've done this and I've done that. People kind of nod out. Imagine when you go to a party and you're mingling, meeting new people, and you stop and you're talking with someone and you say, so, what do you do? Or what do you like to do in your spare time? And then the person starts to tell you. And it's interesting for a while. And then they keep telling you and telling you and telling you and telling you some more. And pretty soon you're kind of trying not to be rude, but you're, look, how can I get out of this? Because it's not an exchange. The person is making it all about them and they're forgetting to focus in on you. So when you're pitching, it needs to be about them. And when you're doing an interview, same thing. It needs to be about the audience. And who you are and what you've done is important. It adds to your credibility. You need to be credible, of course, but that isn't the focus. Your destination or your expertise is a doorway, not the destination, as I say here. It's a part of it, but it's not the central thing. And some people have a hard time figuring that out. So I wanted to address that today. So mistake number 2, making it all about you. And instead, of course, we make it about the audience. We want to be thinking about them. And here's 3 really strong ways to do that. Researching the show and the host, engaging in dialogue, and providing actionable steps. These are the 3 things. Researching the show and the host. I mean, there's just no excuse not to know who exactly you're going after. In this day and age, you can look up practically anything and find out. Back in the old days, back in the caveman days, in order to hear like a radio show across the country, you had to call the station and ask the receptionist to put you on hold so you could hear the talk going on over the, can you believe it? I can't even believe it. It sounds like that's not possible. Did that really happen? It really happened. That's really what went on. So researching the show and the host is easier now than ever. I once had a potential client come to me and we were talking about the possibility of working together. And within a minute of the conversation, she said, I want to be on Oprah. So this is a few years ago, but it's relevant today. Oprah was on network television at that point. She really wanted to be on the show. And I said, well, okay. I said, so when's the last time you saw the show? She said, oh, I've never watched the show. I said, you've never watched the show? She said, no, I've never watched the show. I don't watch TV. In fact, I don't own a TV. You don't own a TV? No, I don't own a TV. So, if you want to do national television, You need to be watching the shows and you need to be aware of the host and how they interact with their guests and what you're getting into. She says, well, everybody says I should be on Oprah. Everybody says that, so I should be on Oprah. I said, I'll tell you what, we'll work on getting you on Oprah, but you have to get a TV. So anyway, we worked it out. But the point is, research the show and the host. This helps you to make it about the audience. You have to know who you're talking to. Secondly, engaging in dialogue. So an interview is a conversation back and forth. And over the years, I've worked with lots of different people. I've worked with many speakers. I love speakers. I've worked with many academics. I love academics. And I've found that consistently, speakers and academics have the biggest challenge transitioning into doing a dialogue with media. They just do. And I think the reason is because they're used to holding court. If you're a speaker and you're giving a 40-minute presentation on a stage, no one's talking back and forth with you. And if they are, that's probably not good. You're asking them to leave or whatever. Usually you are holding court and you're speaking to the audience. It's not a back and forth. And so when you get into doing interviews, it needs to be a back and forth. I see this mistake actually fairly often. In fact, I used to have my own podcast. I think it started in about 2010 and went until about 2017. It was weekly. I don't know if many of you have a podcast, but those of you who do, you know how much work it is coming up with guests and doing all the show notes and getting all the preparation and doing the distribution. There's a lot to it. Anyway, I had a pitch from a speaker and I loved the topic, so I invited her to be on the show. So she was on the show. I asked one question, and 20 minutes later, she came up for air. And I said, wow, it's really interesting. It was an interesting topic. It was very interesting. I like the way you presented. I can't use it. What do you mean you can't use it? I said, well, we didn't have a conversation. I asked you one question and it was a monologue, really. And she says, oh, can we do it again? So we did it again and it worked out fine. But we want to engage in dialogue, of course, when we do an interview, and then providing actionable steps, which is usually pretty easy for nonfiction authors. There's usually some actionable steps that you can offer in an interview. So, for example, if someone was an online safety expert, you might have 5 tips on how to stay safe online, and then have the 5. And that's what the interview would be about. So this is how you make it about the audience and what they can take. They call them takeaways. So you do an interview, what can the audience take away? And producers will even ask you that. What are the takeaways? And that's what they're referring to. So it's those actionable steps that the audience can take. Moving on to mistake number 3, chasing every media opportunity, which almost sounds counterintuitive, but it's really not. Every opportunity is not necessarily appropriate for you. So saying yes to everything that comes your way is really not in your best interest. Unstrategic media hits, paying for exposure, and saying yes to everything can be definite problems. So those unstrategic hits, that's random media appearances. If they're not aligned with your message and your audience, they rarely move the needle or help you achieve your publicity goals, whatever they are. So there's an alignment that needs to happen. Stephanie talks about this a lot in the Nonfiction Authors Association, that you have to know who your target market is. That is absolutely critical. When it comes to doing publicity, you have to know who that target market is and what media speaks to that target market so that there's an alignment. There's an alignment between your audience that you're trying to reach and the media, the audience that they have. That alignment needs to be there. And when you're pitching, this is what you want to show, that there is an alignment and that you have something to offer to them. If you can line those things up, you can be very successful doing this. Another issue can be paying for exposure. I'm seeing more and more of this all the time. And these are companies that start services I have to be careful how I say this. So they start services that may not be in your best interest. Pay for play. Let's put it that way. It's pay for play, where they have like maybe a publication or they have a television channel or an online digital channel, and they'd love to have you be a part of it, and it's going to cost you some money to be on it. So it's really advertising. You're paying to play. You're paying to be there. It's not that advertising is a bad thing. The thing is, they don't say it's advertising. They call it other things like sponsored content, and there's other words that are used. And it's really advertising. Sometimes advertising is a good thing. If you're doing a particular campaign and there's an outlet that would really help you to reach your market. There may be times when it makes sense, but this needs to be discerned, and it's a decision that has to be made with eyes wide open, not just, ooh, I can pay for this and get all this coverage. Even some of the major publications have started branches where they will charge money for exposure. There's, and Forbes magazine even has it. So you pay money to have access to their platform, and they allow you to publish so many articles or whatever, and you have access to their people. That's nice. But anyone who knows that, and other media, if you want to get other media and they look at the media you've done and they say, oh, you paid for everything, I don't think so. I think I'll pass. Earned media is earned media. You earn it. You have to jump through some hoops. You have to be credible. You have to have something that they find really interesting for their audience. It takes some work to get that, and it's powerful. It's absolutely powerful. Paying for exposure can really backfire, and that's just what I want to say about that. And then, of course, saying yes to everything dovetails with what we're talking about. They all take time and energy. To do an interview takes time and energy. So, in the interest of self-care, if you will, doing shows and expending that time and energy for something that really isn't going to get you where you want to go seems not such a good use of your time. So we want to be careful of that. So if chasing every media opportunity is the mistake, then instead, oops, we want to, it's just, this is so simple. Be strategic. You want to be strategic, reach your target readers, and elevate your authority. So reach your target readers, elevate your authority. That's what you want to do. Pretty easy. Mistake number 4. I love this one. Trying to wing it during interviews. Meaning, oh, I've written the book. I can just go out and do interviews. I don't have to practice. But you know what? Usually people have to practice. If someone makes it look really easy, they've been doing it a while. So if you see an interview and someone just makes it seem so easy, oh my gosh, they're so relaxed, they have energy, they're really passionate, they're communicating well with the host, they come off so well, they must have been born with that. You know, they've either had media training or they've done a lot of it, they've had a lot of experience, or both, and likely it is both. Because media training can be incredibly powerful and helpful because it starts you thinking about the things that need to be done to shape a really great interview. And that is only helpful. Quality content matters, but writing the book is one thing and delivering a fabulous interview is another. I've run into many authors who they just want to write and they express that. And I get it. You know, they love writing, they want to write, they live out in a quiet little place, and that's just what they want to do. They don't want to do all this crazy promotional stuff. And what I've found is usually that just means they're scared. You know, there's some fear there. They haven't really done it. They haven't been exposed to it. They don't really know how to do it. And they're uncomfortable with sharing with the world the important information that they want to share. So that's something that needs to be bridged. Once they do, and once you start having some successful interviews, it's self-motivating. It's like you do an interview and it felt really good and you know it went well and other people are maybe commenting because you posted it on social media. It just inspires you to do more. Oh, I'm going to do some more. That'd be really great. And then as you do each interview, sometimes a host will ask you a question that you hadn't thought of, and it's a great question. So you add it to your list of questions. Or maybe you answer something in a unique way that you really weren't expecting. It's, I really like how I answered that. I'm going to make a note and make sure that's something that I do in the future. So all kinds of wonderful things can come out of it. But relying on improvisation can lead to rambling, miscommunications, and a failure to convey your core message effectively. I knew a guy who wrote a book, and he was doing a book tour, actually, a virtual book tour, and then he was also going in studio for some. He was in Los Angeles at one point, and he went into a studio in Los Angeles. And so he got on the air with the host, and they were talking, and then the host asked a question that was out of left field. It was just out of left field. And the person, the author, answered the question, and it sent them down this path where they had this whole conversation about something that had nothing to do with his book or why he was there. And at the end of it, he walked out and thought, oh, I didn't say anything about why I was there or being helpful to the audience. And so this is another thing about media training. You learn how, when you get a host who kind of takes you off target, is how do you bring it back to one of your key messages? Critical. You need to know how to do this because it's going to happen. And here's the artistic piece of it. You want to bring it back in a way that is elegant and that no one says you're changing the subject or you really don't want to talk about this, do you? Well, I want to talk about it. Let's talk about it and get in a little argument there or whatever. So it needs to have an elegant way to bring it back. And people who don't get any media training or at least do mock interviews or something, they're out there not doing such a great job. And I see it all the time. So if winging it's a bad idea, what do we do instead? You want to prepare like a pro. Prepare like a pro. You want to have talking points, you want to have sound bites and stories that make you unforgettable. This is how you do a great interview by saying something, sharing information in a way that makes you unforgettable, right? You don't want to just blend into the background. People click off on that all the time. Imagine yourself watching a video and you think, oh, boring, out, right? We all do it. We all do it. So here's 4 things you can do and that are helpful in preparing like a pro is practicing your delivery, handle tough questions, simulate interviews, and refine your message. So practicing the delivery, this includes an interview launch. So you hear about book launches all the time. I hear it all the time. I have a book launch coming up. It's coming up in 2 months. I'm putting together my book launch team now. This is all good stuff. Yeah? Book launches are important. Nobody talks about an interview launch except for me. An interview launch is important. It's that answer to the first question, and it determines a lot. So it's really a key thing to know how to do. And when someone hasn't done any media training or practiced in any way or even heard this information, they're, believe me, they're not doing that. They're doing something else. Handling tough questions. This is important. So if you have a subject and you're anticipating that it's possible you might be asked questions that you're nervous about answering, you need to come up with an answer to it. You just do. Years ago, I interviewed a woman who was a relationship expert. And she had written, I don't know, 8, 10 books, something like that. And her publicist mailed me a copy of the book, and I scheduled her to be on the show. And as I was reviewing the press kit, it said, here she is, this relationship expert, and the press kit says she's been married and divorced 8 times. I mean, that's a lot. I think that's a lot. I mean, if you're I would think, it's just my own thought, a relationship expert, you might have your first relationship and maybe it doesn't go so well because you learned a lot from it. And maybe the next one goes on for 20, 30 years or whatever because you learned. So anyway, I get her into the studio. We do this interview. And of course, that's my first question, right? And I know you're a relationship expert. But you've been married and divorced 8 times. I just want to know about that. And this very moment was when I learned what micro expressions were because it flash of anger real quick. Very quick. But she recovered right away. And she came back and she said this. You know how you're in high school and you have a boyfriend? And then maybe you break up, it's a sad breakup. And then you get another boyfriend, you got this boyfriend. And then you graduate from high school and you go to college. And you have a boyfriend in college. And then maybe halfway through college, you break up and you meet someone else and they're your boyfriend. And then you decide to live together. So you live together and then, that ends. And then you're out on your own and you meet someone and they become your husband. You get married. I just married everyone along the way. I thought that was brilliant. That's a brilliant answer. So we laughed and then we carried on with the interview. Now, she did not want to be asked that question, but it's the obvious question. And she came up with a way, or her publicist or someone, they worked out the perfect answer because that's a good answer. So if you have anything that could be asked that you're nervous about, you want to come up with a good answer. That's the advice here. And so here's an interesting thing that if you don't prepare an answer, you very well may be asked the question. The other side of that is you prepare this amazing answer and then no one asks you the question. I mean, you're sitting there thinking, please ask me the question because I got the perfect answer. And then they never ask the question. It doesn't happen. I don't know what that is, but it seems to be true. So be ready for it. Simulating interviews, this is where you can engage in mock interviews. It doesn't have to be media training. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. But mock interviews, I definitely recommend. And this is just where you have someone, you come up with a list of questions and you have someone ask you the questions off camera. You are on camera and you answer the questions. And then you review it again and see how you did. What did you do well? And what could use some improvement? So that's about. And then refining your message every time you do a mock interview or you do media training. And then when you start doing interviews, each one you do, you learn from it. You get better from it. So you get better at articulating your key talking points. You become clearer. You're more concise. You figure out how to be even more memorable because practice can make a huge difference. All right. So moving on to mistake number 5. This one is hiding from your own expertise. I definitely see this one. And it can happen in the form of waiting for permission, undermining your own credibility, and missed opportunities. So, waiting for permission, this is imposter syndrome. This is when, let's say, you've been in your line of work for 5 years, which is a good amount of time. Now you have a book. But there are people out there sharing the same space who have been out there for 20 years, and they have a lot more followers on social media, and they've been doing a lot more of this. And who am I to come along and try to emulate this? And you got to look this one square in the eye because people are different. Even though there's someone who's been doing it longer, you are unique, you are fresh, you may be newer on the scene, but that's okay. You still have lots of time. So it's stepping into and owning your own expertise. It's so critical because if you don't, it comes across in a lot of different ways. Imposter syndrome silences authors, it delays opportunities without question. Furthermore, if you're not owning that expertise, then you're probably not speaking as confident. Why no, you're not speaking as confidently as you would if you were owning that expertise. And when you're hesitant, whether it's pitching, and it can come across in written pitches too, and certainly as you're speaking to someone, if you're not confident in what you're delivering, people will feel that. They feel it. They may not be able to name it. Sometimes they can name it. Ooh, they don't seem confident at all. Sometimes they can't name it. It's just something, it just doesn't feel quite right. So they don't book you on the show. Well, that would definitely be a missed opportunity. Holding back. Some people won't even go out and pitch because of that imposter syndrome. It stops them from even going out and making it happen. Part of making it happen is getting out and doing it. So, hiding from your own mistake. Remember, audiences respond to conviction. If you don't believe you're the expert, neither will they. And so much of what you do is about your energy. When you're on camera, you're doing any kind of interview, you want to have energy and show that you're passionate and you're confident in what it is that you're doing. It does come across. It absolutely does. So, what do we do instead? We've touched on it. You project confidence. Sometimes, until you really feel it, you could imagine someone that you know who comes across as incredibly confident and just kind of step into how you imagine they would feel, feeling confident like that, and play with that type of confidence. You demonstrate competence by sharing deep insights and practical advice. We know you're competent, right? That's a given. You've written the book, you've got the experience, you've got the expertise, the clients, whatever it is that you have going on. So you're competent. Now we're bringing in that confidence so that we really own it. And you need to see if there's a disconnect there. This is what I call the inner game of media, part of it anyway. The inner game of media is all that stuff that goes on inside before you ever go out. And that needs to be handled first, because otherwise it's really hard to make things happen on the outside if they're not handled on the inside. And you may well know this, it's worth underscoring because it's important. And I see a lot of people out there. I would say another word for this is congruent, being congruent. So when you're doing an interview, the words you speak are also matching your energy and how you're coming across. So I saw an interview it was on the news, and they were interviewing like this big sports guy. I don't know, basketball, I think. And he was very popular on the team, and they just brought a new person, a new player on the team, and they were asking the old pro, what do you think about working with so and so? Now that he's on the team, what do you think? And he goes, oh, he's wonderful. I really love working with him. You notice the no, but he's saying, his words are saying yes, and his body's going no. This is another wonderful thing about media training because another pair of eyes can see those inconsistencies. Being congruent is a critical thing. So it's important. Your book is a testament to your expertise. Now you want to embody it in every interaction. And you may not be doing interviews right now, but you're probably meeting people. You're doing social things. Someone might ask, what are you doing? And you say, I've written a book. You have an opportunity when they say, what's your book about? Because they will. then you have an opportunity to really hold that confidence and that competence as you talk about it. It's all practice. Everything is an opportunity to practice, and it's an important thing to do. So let's do a quick summary here. The 5 media mistakes that authors make: leading with your book and not your message. Remember that one? Your book is a tool, it's not the topic. You want to engage with compelling messages that resonate with the audience. Making it all about you, also a mistake. You want to focus on the audience's need and provide value, not just self-promotion. It's amazing how many people miss on this one. Then chasing every opportunity. Again, we want to be selective and pursue strategic opportunities that help you, help your book, help your business, help you to move forward, and helps the audience. And then trying to wing it during interviews, also a mistake. Preparation is key. So you want to develop talking points and practice that delivery, and you get better and better. And then, of course, the 5th mistake: hiding from your own expertise. You want to own your authority and confidently share that knowledge to attract opportunities. So it's all a good thing, absolutely. And that leads us to your media success strategy, where you define your core message. So you clarify the problem that your book solves and your unique perspective. So this is helpful if there are other people sharing your space, which there probably are. Whatever you've written about, others have probably written about it too. So it becomes critical to point out how you are unique and different from everyone else that's out there. I can't stress enough the importance of this, and then the positioning of yourself. Target the right media, of course. You want to prioritize outlets that reach your ideal audience. Quality beats quantity, so you want to be intentional. Become a media darling. Okay, so what's a media darling? I think the easiest way and the quickest way to describe that is the media calls you. So when you're starting out, and even as you go along, I mean, you're pitching media, you're setting up interviews for yourself, you're talking to journalists, you're doing all of this. And if you're out there quite a lot, sometimes media, they get to know you. And then when a particular story comes up, they say, oh, call Stephanie Chandler. She knows all about this. Let's get her on here. She's quick. She'll know what she's doing. Let's get her on. She didn't have to go out and pursue that. They came to her. And that's what I'd love to see for each and every one of you, that you become a media darling and they call you. And then you want to own your expertise and serve, step confidently into your authority, and focus on the audience you share with the media, and deliver insights that genuinely help everybody. Just checking on our time. Oh, we're doing good. I love it when we're doing well on time. Oh, so go ahead and get your questions ready, because we're about to go into that part of the webinar where we're going to answer your questions. And by the way, I think there's a special place where you can put questions. So go ahead and put them in there. I also want to add, if you type anything in the chat, and I hope you do, I'll be seeing this later. So if you want to say hi or anything, please do, because that would be fun. That'd be fun for me. I've been doing webinars, I think I mentioned earlier, since 2010. So 15 years, long time. And one thing I've learned is whenever I do a webinar, lots of people show up, which is wonderful. I love it. And then there's usually a percentage that want to go deeper. And so this next little portion is for those of you that may want to go deeper and join me in this. So I just want to take a moment, and then we'll get to your questions, because practice really does make perfect. So to be truly exceptional in media, consistent practice is key, and learning some tips and tricks, if you will, to do it even better. And we have the Book Publicity Master Course, which I have to say is one of my all-time favorite programs. It's so much fun. And just to spell it out a little bit, it's a comprehensive 6-week program. We dive deep into media strategy and hands-on training for over 6 focused weeks to master your message. And I'm right there with you. And not only me, but we've got some other people who will join the group, and we become like this little community. And it's powerful. It's really powerful. It begins 1 week from today. That's August 19th. The live sessions start at the same time this started. So it'll be at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, or whatever time zone you're in. I think we have someone from Munich. It's probably started at 7 p.m. there maybe. But wherever you are in the world, we can do that. And if you can't make it at that time, we record the sessions for your convenience. So if you can't make one for some reason, maybe the time isn't quite right, or you have a commitment that you can't move, you can always listen to the recording. You'll receive it that day. And and there might be things that we talk about that you want to go over and review. That can happen. It's, oh yeah, I remember we talked about this. I want to look at it again and see what I can glean from that. So you'll never miss any of that content. Then to go into some specifics, here's the schedule. Week number 1, we're going to talk about becoming a media darling. How do you do that? How do you show up and become irresistible? You have lots of charisma and presence. We'll definitely go into that and how to do that. Makes a huge difference. Week number 2, we uncover your unique message. Also very important. There's lots of people talking about a particular subject. How are you different? How can we have you stand out? What can we really amplify so that you become even more memorable? Week number 3, we craft a message that hooks others. If you can't capture attention fast, you lose it. We all know this. We absolutely, I heard something, maybe you did too, that the average human being has the attention span of a goldfish now. I mean, how do you measure the attention span of a goldfish? I don't know. Maybe it's a marketing thing. It could be. It's definitely striking and it's sad in a way, but this is the reality. So if we want to capture a media person's attention or our final customer that we want to buy our book, we have to be able to get to it and get to it fast. Week number 4 is the Smart Pitch Play book where strategy meets action. So we get into the real nitty gritty here, crafting pitches that cut through the noise and they land opportunities. Absolutely. Week 5, own the interview. This is the media training portion of it. This is a blast. If anything, this is worth everything. If you get this, is worth everything. There's been studies done that the actual content that you say in an interview is one thing. It's even more impactful the way you say it, which I think is really interesting. Anyway, so you've landed the interview. Now show up like a pro. And then week number 6, it's ready, set, publicity. So you go public with purpose, confidence, and a strategic plan for maximum impact. We pull it all together. So that's what we do in week number 6. Then we have a few added things. It's the weekly live Zoom sessions with Q&A, which we mentioned, offering direct interaction and immediate answers. Recordings and slides shared the same day. We'll have plenty of handouts, I promise you, lots of descriptions, examples that clearly show you what to do. And then a private Facebook group for students to foster our own community so we can watch and be a part of the live trainings or watch the recording. And then we can talk in the Facebook group in real time. And it's a chance to bring up your own book. So you'll be talking about your own book, your own message. We may ever have other people in the group who say, I love that book. I'm going to buy that book. I do it. Oh, I love that book. I'm going to buy that book. Here's my book. What do you think? It's great. It's great. And plus special goodies and surprises. This is something I just love to do. I have special things that I like to give, and that's fun. And you'll meet wonderful new friends and a supportive network to cheer you on. So if you're ready to enroll and join us, then I think Stephanie's going to be joining us here and tell us exactly how we can do that. And then we're going to get into the Q&A. There's my fancy slide for Q&A. I'm going to stop the share now and see if she's back with us. Not yet. She's probably busy getting that cup of coffee.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, you are here. Oh, good. How come I can't see you?
Probably because
The view?
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I think
No, I got you now. I got
Oh,
you now.
okay.
It was the gallery view.
Okay. Welcome. Hi. Great job. We all loved it. Really great. And thank you so much for that. So I put the link in the chat for those of you interested. We have lots of questions to go through. If you have a question for Joanne, please pop it in the Q&A and I will help us get going here. So we had several people, Joanne, who asked, what is the name of the podcast that you mentioned that has 1.4 million views and listeners?
Yeah. The only reason I was hesitant to name it was, oh, I can tell you. That's fine. It's not a, yeah. It's called the Something You Should Know Show. Something You Should Know. Mike Carruthers is the host, and it's all about interesting information, interesting things that are going on in our culture and in our life and in science and in our world. And I think you'll enjoy it. It's a great show.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tina says, as it relates to a podcast, is it possible not to have guests, perhaps making it more of a teaching moment, like 7 steps to, or maybe alternating between guests and no guests? What are your thoughts on that?
So this is from someone who would like to host a podcast or who does host a podcast. That's what it sounds
Wants
like.
to, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to have guests. In fact, I appreciate you bringing that up because, oh, it's CBS calling. Sorry about that, you guys. When you want to be booked on a podcast, make sure they take guests. Okay, because you can spend a lot of time looking and thinking, oh, this will be great for me, and they don't take guests, and you don't want to waste that kind of time. But back to your question, absolutely, you can have a podcast where you just talk about like for 7 minutes your opinion on something. You can do
Yeah,
whatever you want.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And there are some like Ask Pat Flynn has one where you ask Pat and he just reads a question and answers it. I think those are interesting.
he's great too. He's
He
great.
is.
Yeah.
Amy says, I'm working on revisions now to a memoir about the lies, secrets, and assumptions that underpin identity. I want to pitch traditional publishers. I've read works on public radio, done radio interviews, given workshops, and have taught college writing courses, but these are all over 5 years ago. How can I get some current podcast interviews? My marketing plan and my book proposal looks more credible as it relates to getting and doing well on podcasts.
Well, first, I would say 5 years is not horrible. So if you have something really great from 5 years ago, I would use it. And then it's the same thing. You're writing the memoir now. You want to figure out what podcasts would you like to be on and actually pitch them and
Absolutely.
get on the show. Yeah. And then, so the beauty of it was when you're pitching other media, you want to have links to media you've done. So when you're starting, you might include one or two from 5 years ago. That's fine because they get a chance to see you and hear you and get an idea of how you express your ideas. And then as you book some, get the links to that and put that in the future pitches. That's what I do that with clients all the time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonder if you have recommendations on how much of your time to spend on publicity and marketing versus crafting and writing your book. I get this question so often.
Do you want to answer it?
Like this is the challenge for every author. Even New York Times bestselling authors have day jobs. So I think it's a challenge for all of us. My recommendation is try to aim for 20 minutes a day on your marketing publicity. Plant three seeds. Write a blog post, send a podcast pitch, do something every day, 20 to 30 minutes. Those seeds add up. That's my philosophy,
I
Joe.
want to just add one other thing
Yes.
to that, and that is as you are writing your next book and you're doing publicity on the book before that, make sure before you do an interview that you review your talking points, your press kit for that book you're doing the interview on. Otherwise, you get on and you do an interview and you have talking points for the wrong book. You don't want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
I've
Been
seen
there,
that
done
happen.
that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mike says, I'm regularly asked to do various press interviews. I've never before had a book, so never asked them to do anything for me. How do I broach the subject of promoting the book when they call asking me for the interview? Great question.
And I assume that the book relates to what they would be calling you for an interview for, right? Is that a good assumption? I would think so. You can just, if these are people you've worked with, you can send them a note that just says, hey, here's what I'm doing right now, and talk a little bit about the book. Or if they call you to do an interview and to set up an interview, you can actually say, I'm writing about a book about this too. Is it okay? Can you mention that? Because it'd be part of the bio. I mean, we're talking to, what was his name again, Stephanie? What was his
This
name?
was from Mike.
Mike.
Mike Flynn.
So, yeah, so Mike's been writing this book. No, Mike, we're talking to Mike today about blah, blah, blah. He is this and he's written this book. It can just be in the description of who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And maybe there's new topics you can derive from the book. If you've got
absolutely.
he's apparently a media darling. They're coming to him.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to let him know you've written the book. Yeah,
Yes.
send him a copy. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, send him a copy.
Lily says English is my second language, and I'm worried that listeners might not understand me. Should I avoid doing podcasts and interviews, or are there ways to make them work for me? Great question.
It really is a good question. And I want to compliment you on just the perception of that possibility, because it can happen if a host or a producer hears someone who has a wonderful accent but it's difficult to discern exactly what they're saying. It could be a problem. Media training or working with a speech person, if you want to work to perhaps bring your accent down a little bit so you're a little more understandable, is one option. Or you could focus on podcasts that are from your own part of the world, that where that language is spoken or that accent is common. Do you have anything to add to that, Stephanie? I think that,
No, I think that's perfect.
yeah,
Perfect.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Yep, I think that's great. We've had a couple of people asking who offers media training, Joanne.
I do.
Everyone who offers media training, raise your hand.
I mean, there are media trainers. There are probably some in your market. It depends on where you live. If you're near a city, there'll be people right in your market. And that's perfect if you want to do on camera and you want to physically be with someone. That's definitely an option. The Nonfiction Authors Association is wonderful in that they invite me each year to offer a media training course, which I love doing. And so that will be coming up at some point in the future. And maybe that will match well for your timing. And I invite you to join us then.
And I imagine you cover some of those tips through the publicity course as well.
Yes, week number 5 is all about that. Thank you for mentioning that. It's all about week number 5 is media training
Yeah.
specifically. So, yeah,
And speaking of courses, we were asked if there's a memoir writing course. We do have one on self-study, and I also lead a 12-week course on how to write your book. We absolutely cover a memoir in that course. The next one, we're finishing up the current one right now. The next one starts in November, and it is up on the site.
I did that last year. It was great fun, by the way.
Thank you. Yes,
Yep.
it was. I love teaching it. I'm having so much fun teaching this course. Diane says, I've been on a number of podcasts before for an earlier book. Would it be a good idea for me to contact them with a new pitch? Yep.
Yes, and remind them of it. In fact, what I do, one of my little tricks is I go back and I find an email where we had an exchange before, and then I just add to it. And then I say, oh, I loved working with you before, and here's what I'm doing right now. I think it'd be a great fit for your audience. Here's what I cover. And then below that, you've got whatever exchange. Maybe it was when they say, oh, you were a great guest. We loved having you on. Have that there.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. GH says, I have broadcast training and experience. Do I mention that in my pitch to reassure interviewers?
Yes, you bet. Absolutely. If you have a clip or anything, you could include a link to that. Yes, that says a lot. That says a
Eva,
lot.
oh, and Linda wanted to clarify she's looking for one-on-one media training. You offer that as well.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been through media training and it is such a valuable thing to do. And in fact, I was put through it by, I had a corporate sponsor and I thought I'd already done tons of media. I thought, well, I really don't need this, but they were paying for it. So I did it. And I will say, I'm so glad I did it. It was such a valuable skill to gain. So I,
A lot of and a lot of authors, they get media training for one book, and when they have their next book, they do it again. Because even though some of the skills are transferable, of course, you know, how to look at the camera, how to talk into a microphone, that's transferable. But you have new key messages and you have new ways that you want to communicate what you want to communicate. And very often being with someone to work all that out, particularly maybe difficult questions, can be a part of that too, and figuring out what your answers are to those. So lots of people do it with every book.
the difficult questions thing was really interesting to me because learning how to redirect when they ask you a question you may not want to answer. And it was very insightful to see how politicians do it. Yeah.
They don't even do it. They don't. They'll answer with what they want to answer. But a really skilled person, author, a very skilled one, can take a difficult question and find a way to elegantly move it back into seamlessly. I call it seamless. You don't even know you've been redirected. That's what you want. You don't want to be come across as rude, right?
Yeah. And all the more reason to be fully prepared.
Yeah.
Eva Maria says, when I write about a scientific topic, I cannot know all the facts in detail. So, despite my confidence, I might not have the answer to the interviewer's specific question. Wouldn't it be best to state how important this question is, but that honestly it is beyond my area of expertise? What is your advice, Joanne?
Sure. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, absolutely. You can say that's not an area that I know a great deal about. But what I can tell you is this. So this is how you say, no, I can't do that. You can put it a little more gracefully than that. That's not my area. I can tell you this, and then give them something you can tell them. So you're not just letting it hang out over here that I don't know the answer. You're giving them something. That's what I would recommend.
All right. It looks like we got through all the questions. They've been great. The chat's been really fun too. Several of your past students raved about your course, Joanne. Thank you
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
We
Sweet.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Joanne, just wrap us up. Thank you again for this. Remind everyone when the course starts and also your personal website.
Yeah, my personal website is my name, joannemccall.com. It's being revised right now. Doesn't everybody say that? So in a couple of weeks, it's going to be updated. But right now, it's fine. So you can find me there. All the social channels. I'm at Joanne McCall. I invite, let's connect. I'd love to stay in touch. And this course is when you're ready and you feel ready to go deeper. And I make it fun. Everybody in the course makes it fun. And we figure out ways to learn from each other and have clear directions and build that confidence so we can go forward. So what you learn here is transferable throughout the rest of your life. So any product, any book, anything that you create in the future, you're going to have a lot of skills to go forward with that. It's not a one and done. This is it. So that's what I want to say.
And I think you and I both try to create a sense of community in our courses. I
Yeah.
love that. I'm actually doing a reunion call next week after next with a previous course group to check in on where everyone is. So it's really fun to do these courses. If you can't attend all live, that's okay. The recordings come out the same day. And then, Joanne, we had several people asking about the slides from this. Can we share those as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All right. So
I'll
we'll
get
share
them to
that.
Caitlin and yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's fantastic. So slides and recording will be out this afternoon. We
Great.
appreciate you all. Joanne, you're wonderful as always. We
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone. It was really a pleasure.
You've all been great. Thanks you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope to see you back at our future events, whether it's a course or a free webinar. We look forward to spending some more time with you all. So have a great rest of your week, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for attending this webinar by the Nonfiction Authors Association. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you need support navigating the complexities of the publishing industry and want to reach your author goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com.